Welcome back. Johnny, what's new? What's going on?
Loads
Lowe's?
has been going on this past week.
Yeah, you had a call this morning with some potential clients.
Yes.
So obviously what we're doing is the first thing is, creating content for me and my page and things like that. But also part of the experiment is to get you more experience with business and entrepreneurship and
Yes.
more clients and building your business. That's actually what I'm more excited about than like me becoming famous or anything. So that's obviously what we're doing. I'm kind of almost like the test subject because I don't really need money. You know what I mean? So we're just basically testing my stuff out so you can learn a little bit about business and a little bit, but like actually in the weeds of business. So what was the call about today?
Yeah, so it's interesting you brought up the point about how like you don't need money, because I was talking to Adam Nasir, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He's actually living in Dubai. He's the CEO of Smarter Connect, right? So
Smarter Contact.
Smarter Contact. So he's trying to exit his business, and the next step for him is going to be content, because essentially he has solved the financial problems for himself, and I assume his family as well too. So the next step is going to be content. But it's interesting you brought up the point how like you don't need money, because Adam is in pretty much the same situation that you're in. And it's good because for your brand, we're not like trying to swindle anybody, because we're not selling anything. Like essentially we're just trying to generate eyeballs. So, but the call that I had with him was cool because essentially like his brand is very similar to yours. So, and he just told me that he hired on a full-time videographer and moved him into his apartment.
Nice.
And now he's going to have this like full-time kid who is working for free for him. The kid just reached out and was like, I've been a fan for like a couple years. I learned video editing and shooting. Like, I want to shoot for you. He's like, I'll do it for free.
Sick.
And Adam's like, bet. Moved him into his place. Like, and so if you're looking to do videography, that's a great way to like break into the field. It's just offer your services for free and just blow it out of the water.
Well, and like you told me before, you're like, if I could have went back at 18 or 19 instead of going to college, right? You're like, how much would it have cost me to just do an internship with you instead of paying, the university?
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said that possibly you would have been a lot more further ahead than paying to a university to learn something from people that, maybe wasn't actually what you were interested in learning, versus like actually being in the weeds with somebody who's living a lifestyle that you wanted and had already learned and went through the things that you want to go through. So I think it's a very interesting way to do it, and it's definitely I think the model to go forward if you actually want to get ahead.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight, of course, is 2020. But if I would have, at 18, if I would have met you, and we would have worked together from 18 to me turning 22, those 4 years, I can't even imagine how far ahead I would be. But hindsight's always 2020. So
yeah, I say the same thing. Like if I would have not went to college and I would have just started knocking on doors at 18. I mean, obviously, yeah, same thing. Like you can't go back in time, but every place that you're at, like every position, like you're at there with whatever you've gained in experience, no matter where you're at now. But you can always change that. You don't have to stay in the same trajectory. But there are moments in time when you're like, there's a crossroad when you're like, okay, this is an opportunity over here. It's maybe like the safe and secure route, what everybody tells me I should do. And then there's this like other path that like, I don't really have a clear, destination, but I know that there's like a lot of things along the way that I'll probably learn, and it's probably gonna be a little bit more exciting. But I don't know if my parents will like it, or I don't know if my, social circle will be okay with me trying this thing out. And it's like, it's not the safe route, but like the safe route is, I don't know. It's not really was ever really intriguing to me, but you have an opportunity to kind of go that other route.
yeah, 100%, completely agree. And like even the past couple months, just been like spending with you, I like think in my mind, I'm like, if I would have spent like 4 years doing this, like, bro, I've already learned so much just in the past like 9 months or whatever it's been. So like it's wild to think about for sure. But no, the call with Adam was good, and essentially, so he brought on a videographer, and then he's also got a guy who's been chopping content for him. And so essentially, he was like, I really like what you and Matt are doing. And I texted you, and he said that he was impressed with the uniqueness of the challenge. He's like, nobody's doing that. Nobody's like that. And he said, nobody's that transparent about what's going on. Because I talked about one of the videos, we literally got 7 views in one day. And we posted like, probably like 19 videos that day. Literally got 7 views. So he said he liked the transparency because everybody's like over the, you know, like the guru, like my life is Lambos and watches and
right.
like, so, and that's the reality of content. It's up and it's down. It's up and it's down. Like there's one, like yesterday we had 5,000 views on a video, which is like pretty solid for us. And then the consistency part, that he's like, you were literally there every single day, like talking about the challenge.
Yeah. Well, what did we talk about yesterday? Like when I was telling you, because John obviously asked me a lot of questions consistently about like, not like, you know, in a like slimy way, but like, how do I actually sell somebody something? How do I make it that the value to them is so beneficial that it's like a no-brainer that they would buy the service from me, right? And that's like what sales is. It's just basically persuading somebody to understand that the desired outcome that they want is going to be fulfilled by you. So we talked about this a lot, and obviously depending upon where you're at in your life, somebody's going to value certain things differently. When money is no longer the main, you know, like objective, you obviously have to understand that like most people are going to buy from you because they trust that you're going to do the thing that you say you're going to do, right? You've already validated that you have credibility because you're working with me. You can attach yourself to somebody that already has built some type of credibility if you don't have that yet. So you can kind of attach yourself to that. But then like we were talking about like, well, how does it make it seem that the, you know, it's not like a sleazy guarantee or something like that? Because if somebody actually says to somebody that's like trying to create content, oh, I can guarantee you this amount of followers and this amount of things, you know, most people are going to try and do that. But like, it's actually impossible to guarantee followers, subscribers, anything like that, unless you buy them, right? So they're either going to lie to you about the ability to get you followers and subscribers, or they're just going to buy them and fake it, which isn't going to get you anywhere anyways. So the only thing that you can offer as a guarantee is the consistency of output, right? Be like, in the quality. Be like, I guarantee the quality, I guarantee the consistency of the output, and I guarantee you the adjustments in me as the person to deliver those things. And if you can show that, it's like, oh, that's actually really transparent. I don't think you're like some phony guy trying to sell me something that like, I know that you can't guarantee me, 10,000 followers in the next 30 days. If you did, it you know, it's, if somebody offered you that, I'd be like, I know it sounds good, you know, but it's like, you can't guarantee that to me, you know, like it's not unless you bought those followers, you know. So I don't know. I think it's just an interesting way to talk to somebody in an authentic way. So that's kind of what we've been trying to lean more into, is how you talk to these people. Is like, no, genuinely, like, I want to be the person that's like, I'm a hustler, you know, you're at a point now where you're just starting out. You're willing to put in the hours to get the results and figure it out for them, because that's what they don't want to spend the time doing the things that you will be doing. So that's how you kind of have to, you know, frame it.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. But yeah, like that was essentially the extent of the call with Adam.
Yeah.
And he was like, I want to try working with these 2 guys for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he's like, if that isn't enough, he was like, then I'm going to circle back with you and we'll get all set up. And I was like, great.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Good.
Yeah. So that was cool. And especially like to hear that like the consistencies and like the uniqueness and transparency that we've been doing is cool. And then he was just asking questions, and it's like, I jump on the call with like no expectations other than just to give him as much value as possible.
Yeah.
and like some people would like try to like gatekeep a bunch of information, but I was just like, he was asking questions, I was just telling him like, yo, this is what's working for us. Make sure you do this. Make sure you don't do this. From experience, what we've been doing, what's worked for us, because like I said, you guys have very similar brands, and he was like, I told him, I was like, you're gonna have to, you know, flex a little bit because people, they don't know who you are yet,
Right.
and they won't trust that you are the guy yet until you kind of have to put a little bit of cheese on the broccoli.
Yeah, as we say, right. No, yeah, and that's kind of the, like, it is a balance for sure, because like if you're in the game for the long run, yeah, of course, but like I don't have to do anything that's like outside of who I am. You know, you don't have to be like inauthentic, but like I don't know, I've accomplished a few things, so sometimes it's, you know, you don't feel as confident or comfortable sharing some things. But yeah, I think it's wise to do so because people won't trust you right away, and to get their attention to kind of buy along the journey, you do have to kind of give them a little bit of the cheese before they eat the broccoli, and then they realize, oh, the broccoli is actually good for me, you know?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And I told him like the day in the life type content like works really well, especially if you can like sprinkle a little bit of flex with it. Like when we went to NFI to sign paperwork for a new car that you just bought, after about 48 hours of making the decision, just bought it.
Yeah.
And then like getting the X pipe, taking the Maserati for a spin, like all of that is like flexing, I guess. But like we were actually doing that already.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were, you know, making shit up for like content.
Yeah, well, that's the best content too, because like I don't know, I don't have the bandwidth to spend like, oh, what can I, like, I'm not a natural like creator, you know, but I do understand that like I should learn better ways to like create the life that we're already living in a enticing and entertaining way, and Trojan horsing some like educational stuff in there. So like if you're watching, you're having fun, and then you're like, oh, it didn't just happen overnight. There's actually a lot of stuff that they do, that they have you know, good values, good morals, and rules that they set for their life. So that's what actually allows them to get these type of things. And if they can kind of see that versus like I'm telling you that this is what you need to do, versus like, no, like I'm having fun. I obviously work hard. I wake up. I'm pretty disciplined, you know, but then like we have fun too, right? So like all the other little things that you see that got me there, you know, you can start implementing into your life, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to do more of, is just like, you know, have fun with it, but also like be the person that got me there. You know what I mean? Like, so it's you know, delicate balance, I guess, that we're still trying to figure out. But yeah, with the car, John told me about a car that he liked. So it was out of the blue. If you want to go from complete like practicality, you know, in a Toyota Tacoma, like makes sense, you know, does what it needs to do, to a complete like, you know, exact opposite type of SUV, then that's basically what I did, which is perfectly fine. But it was interesting because I was, my lease on my Tacoma was ending. I was like, I want to buy something else, and I was like, John, you want to go for, you know, a couple test drives on some cars? And he's like, yeah, definitely, because I know John actually likes cars way more than I do and knows way more about cars than I do. I have no idea about cars. I'm learning a little bit. It's fun, you know. And once you, like with anything, the more you learn about something, like the more you can communicate it to yourself, and the more appreciation you can get from it. So like now, if you know, oh, this is a bi-turbo dual engine, you know, AMG exhaust. Oh, that's cool. Like I didn't know what any of that stuff meant. But it's like when you start understanding it and you educate yourself on like little things, you start to appreciate it more. Just like a watch, like, oh, you know, we talk about watches and like the mechanical engineering behind it and stuff like that. And when you start to communicate yourself with how things work, you can appreciate it a little bit more. But he's like, hey, I test drove not test drove, but like we had a car at NFI a few years ago with when he was working at NFI doing some content and stuff. And he's like, this Mercedes GLE 63 AMG S is fire. I'm like, all right, well, let's go test out a few cars. So we went to, Mercedes, went to BMW, test out a bunch of cars. We tested out an Acura, tested out the 4Runner. And the Mercedes just hit different, it just hit different. And then so we called up Justin over at NFI. Well, actually, you know what's funny? So I posted the video of us like, hey, we're going, and this is why it's important to just like document like what you're doing. This has happened so many times. Like if you document what's happening, people want to reach out and like help you. Like it's crazy, right? You don't have to be like some expert. Just like document like what's happening in your life. But like I just document like, hey, we're going to test out some cars. So and Justin messaged me from that story post and goes, yo, whatever you need, man, let me know. I'll find it, and that'd be cool. I was like sick. I was like, this is what I want. He's like, all right, cool. I'll look for it like I'm looking for myself, and I trust Justin. Justin has great taste in cars. He's obviously been in the car industry for many years. So I was just like, yeah, whatever you like. I don't know anything. I was like, I liked it. I drove it for 10 minutes. I was like, that's good enough. So I trust your opinion, Justin, and find me what you need to find. And he found it, and within 2 days, we had a new car being signed. So that's like it's like, but going back to like when money is not like the main issue, you can just do things because you can experiment a little bit. Obviously, at different points in your life, like you shouldn't go buy a $100,000 car just to experiment unless you have, well more than $100,000 to spend on that experiment. But yeah, this is kind of like a point where I'm just going from a practical, like I used to always just buy practical things because like this is what I needed to have to go to my, my properties and this, that, and the other thing, to this is like the most impractical SUV that they make. 577 horsepower, V8 bi-turbo engine. It just fucking rips. It's got 0 to 60 in like 4.1 second. Like for an SUV, like it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. But I'm like, it sounds great. It looks cool, and I don't have any kids. I don't need, you know what I mean? Like, I'm hopefully not going to be doing much more physical labor. But if I do, there's some room in this. There's some room in the space in the back. And it does have a tow hitch. So if we need to tow some jet skis or something like that on the road trips, we're good to go. But the only problem is when Seb's in the back seat, his head might hit the ceiling a little bit. It's okay. He'll be all right.
Yeah, because they call it a coupe. We watched a video yesterday, a guy talking about how this SUV is for somebody who doesn't need an SUV, who doesn't have kids, and just wants a fast SUV coupe.
Yeah, it was like, he's like, for the tens of people out here in the world that this car makes sense for, it's the best car in the business for that person. And
he was literally just like, we know if you drive this car, you're just a rich person who wants an SUV, who doesn't actually need an SUV. And that's just, they're like laughing as we're watching this. Yeah,
because I was like, well, I wanted an SUV, right? I did want an SUV just for like some extra space because I know for a fact I will have to bring stuff down to my properties and things like that. So I didn't want to buy and I already have the Maserati, the car, if I need like a practical car just to drive around, it's not really practical, but if I need a car, right, the Maserati will do. I was like, I don't want to buy like a coupe, like an actual coupe. I was like, I want an SUV, right? And like, if we go drive places, like, I wanted to buy something that we can, road trip in a little bit, and still has enough space that is practical enough for the three guys in the car.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously is an SUV, so there's more than enough room. It's just the SUV happens to have 577 horsepower.
And it gets 14 miles to the gallon.
And it's really loud if you open the exhaust.
Yeah, so you'll be.
It's a cool SUV.
Yeah, if you're keeping along on the journey, you'll definitely be seeing it and hearing it. So hopefully it comes in today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the
day we're recording this, hopefully it should be here by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Head back and check it out before.
We leave. Yeah, we leave. I'm going to my buddy Josh's bachelor party this weekend down in Miami, and then literally the next day on Sunday I fly out to Medellin and meeting up with hopefully Seb and some of the guys down there, Jax and some other guys, Pat Red, a bunch of people down in Medellin. It's a beautiful place. And then be creating some content down there. John flies in on Monday, and then we'll be there for a few weeks. And while I bought this brand new car, it's going to be sitting in NFI's showcase on 12th Street with the Maserati too. I think the Maserati they're going to keep down there too. So it's too cold anyways. I don't want to be here, But True. We'll come back, and then and we're doing some renovations to the house. So we got a whole bunch of stuff we'll be coming back to. And summertime in Pennsylvania is actually pretty nice. So once spring hits, we're going to have new flooring in the house. We're building, a little game room. We got the dartboard up. Chuck's putting in some new flooring in. We got it painted. So summer's going to be cool. I would like to put on like some events in the summer up here where people that want to come hang, like we got a cool spot. We can do some training. We can do some business. We can, talk about entrepreneurship, just mastermind, like this is the stuff, create some content, just do what you're going to do anyways. Be like create your life where you're going to be doing things that you want to do with the people you want to do it, and then document it along the way. So it's like, that's kind of I think where all this content is going to go anyways. It's just like documenting it as it happens. And because you're going to be learning skills and things along the way, it's inevitable that you're going to find something that you're going to be very able to monetize just from being around those type of people. So that's what I'm excited about too, is being able to kind of like show you the ropes of like entrepreneurship and connections and things like that, and then being able to monetize it. So it's fun.
Yeah, and I think I always knew the importance of connecting with the right people and networking and just learning from people. But I've learned a lot of more detailed etiquette type things from you, especially watching you interact with people and seeing your friends interact. So it's been a really cool experience to truly be in the room with very, very successful people that otherwise I wouldn't have been there. So
what's something that you think that you've learned about just interaction, how you hold yourself, being able to put yourself in a high network situation? Because a lot of maybe guys your age maybe don't feel confident or comfortable reaching out. I like to think I'm very approachable, but some people may be a little bit more intimidating. What's something that would help somebody?
I think one of the biggest things is I always like to say act like you've been there. So if I'm in a room with your friends, I act like I've been there. I'm not I don't know how to do any of this. So I act like I've been there, but not to the point where I know everything. I don't want to be I don't want to come into a situation and be well, this is this, and start talking a bunch, because I don't know a lot, but these other people do know a lot. And so I want to know what they know. And I can't hear what they know if I'm just talking. And my mouth is just running. So obviously I act like I know what I'm doing, but there's a fine balance between overstepping and then not getting to hear this person. Because essentially as far as business goes, I know virtually nothing compared to the people who built these massive businesses. So that's something that I like to do, is not be too quiet, but not be oversharing. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing, is find that balance of listen and soak up information and be able to ask the right questions. I'm never walking in being how did you make your money? Because right. It's not relevant to me. You always say, there's a million ways to make $1 million. So asking the right questions. A good question to ask is, that I've had success with, is you'd be speaking to somebody and you'd say, if you were going to do this again, what would you have done differently? Because then you can actually find a tangible lesson from them that they'd be well, maybe I wish I would have done this hiring different, or whatever it is. So ask right questions.
What gate, I know if you don't know John's story, John was a very successful cross country runner in high school and obviously in college as well. So do you think the lessons that you learned along like the path of just like knowing that you are a person that if you set an intention to get better at something, you're going to do the work because, you told me this story before, like when you were was it 10th grade where you like got a little bit of success and then you went out and you actually reached out to not only your teammates, but like to hire somebody specifically to train the cross country guy, like the main cross country team, like, hey, we're going to implement this system together and we're going to we're going for the goals, right? And by doing that, like not only showed like resourcefulness, but it gave confidence in yourself to like, oh, if I set my mind to something, I actually can get better at something. Was that like, do you think that helped a lot in your kind of journey of now being able to be like, okay, well, I don't need to like be insecure when I talk to these people because I know where I'm at in my life in comparison to where they are, but like I don't have to. I know if I learn something from them, I'll be able to implement it. I think a lot of people don't feel that same confidence. Do you think that helped out a lot, or do you think you had that like naturally?
No, I definitely think that particular experience helped a lot because essentially, my sophomore year of high school, our cross country team, we were like good. Like we were going to go to the state meet, but we weren't going to be competitive at all. But it was literally just a mindset switch from, all right, we're going to go to this. We want to go to the state meet, and then the mindset switched to we want to win the state meet. And that's when it was like, okay, if we want to win the state meet, that means we have to do something we've never done. We have to push it another level because there's people on different teams training harder than we are. So if we take a big leap in the off season to, okay, work out with the coaches, work out with the team, and then on our own work with a private trainer, like it's inevitable for us to get worse if we're going to do this. And so it was just like implementing things that like nobody has ever really done in the program history. So
and you were the one that like kind of like took that on, right?
Yeah, because I was just like something in me was like not satisfied with the team culture that we had. It was just like, oh, we made the state meet. Like that was like a huge accomplishment to make the state meet. And I was just like, why? Like 15 teams make the state meet in Ohio. Why can't we win it? What's the difference? And I knew we had a good team. Like we had people with a lot of potential. It was just like, why are we like only settling for making it? Like let's switch the culture to let's win it.
And what was it? So like we talked about this the other day, the belief though, right? It was a belief, and we talked specifically about running the 4-minute mile. If you don't know, Roger Bannister was the first person to ever run the 4-minute mile, and for years nobody thought it was possible. And he was actually like a scientist and was like, I think like the human body is capable of doing this. Like they've been trying to break the 4-minute mile forever, and nobody could break it. And then as soon as Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, within the next like 2 years, like 15 or 20 people broke the 4-minute mile because the belief was now it's humanly possible. So these people who had the ability to get to the next level, they now allowed their brain to believe that it's possible. And like, what was the thing that like had that belief?
I think that there's a quote by Conor McGregor, and somebody's like, oh, are you afraid of this guy? And he's like, anybody who breathes air, I'm not afraid of. They're human. And so like I kind of felt like, all right, and maybe this is going to sound like I'm a maniac, but I was like, these people aren't better than we are. Like these other kids on other teams, they're not better. There's no difference. And I was like, so why are we like, because there was a high school, Hudson High School, who was like, they were really, really good every year. And it was like, why do we look up to them? They're the same age as me. We're the same. Like, but we put them on this pedestal that they can't be beat. So we're not going to beat them. And I was just like, let's break that down. Let's break down that pedestal.
And that's all right. So we're back. But that's actually a good lesson in regards to like when you're interacting with people that may be at a different position in your life, that, you know, you don't pedestalize them, right? Because like anybody that's like famous or, you know, successful or whatever it may be, like they're still human. Like when people come up to me or like anybody that's like famous, like I'm not famous at all, you know, but like if you're weird and like you put me up on a pedestal, it's like awkward because like you've obviously put a belief, a standard that I now have to try and like massage, and if I don't meet your standards, it's a internal thing that like I now have to put a burden on because you put it on me. And it's like nobody feels comfortable like that unless you're like, you know, a complete psychopath. But so when you talk to people, it's like, no, they're human, and I'm curious about how you got here, you know, but I also know that like if there's something that's interesting to me, I'm also capable of doing it if it actually makes sense, if it makes sense for what I want in my life, you know. What I think for a lot of people, the clarity of like what they want holds them back so much. For you, what's been like the driving factor? I'm curious of like how you're able to do things and not like be so concerned about what everybody else thinks, because that's what I think. Like people kind of know what lives they don't want. You know, obviously it's, you know, the clarity of making a decision is based off of, you know, a lot of other people's inputs, like your family, your friends, things like that. So you just take other people's opinions of like what their life should look like. Like how did you have something different? And how did you have the belief that you could go against the grain of like what everybody else kind of was doing?
I think there was like working at TJ Maxx and doing retail, like that scared me.
Yeah.
Because I saw like people, there was this one lady, I don't know if she still works there. If I had assumed, she still works there. She was late 50s working at TJ Maxx, and every single day, I was nice to her because I was like, you know, nice to everybody, but I would always be like, oh, you know, how are you? How's your day going? And every single time I'd ask her, it was never anything good. And I was like, why is this lady so like, I was like, because I'm like, you know, I'm like, let's go, I'm working. And I was like kind of juiced up, and she never had anything like good to say. And I started thinking, I was like, okay, if I was late 50s working with a bunch of teenagers making $11 an hour, I wouldn't have anything nice to say either. And I was like, and then I made up this scenario in my head, and I was just like, if I stay on the path I'm on, I'm gonna end up like this. Even though like that wasn't remotely the case. I was like 16 or 17 at the time. Yeah. So like I was, you know, that wasn't even remotely the case. But I made up this scenario in my head. It was just like, I am in the same position that she is technically. So if I continue on, I'm going to end up like that. And I was like, I can't be afraid to get out of my comfort zone because I see this life. And this could happen. And
so like it all comes down to like fear, right? But some people they're putting the fear on the wrong thing, right? Like the fear was, no, I'm afraid to end up like this. Like that's what motivates. Like fear is a great motivator. When people are like, oh, you know, how do I get over this fear? It's like, no, you don't want to get over fear, but you want to be. And this is genuinely a great lesson. It's like fear is always going to exist, right? But like the perspective of what fear you're afraid of will push you, because fear is just a motivator to avoid something, right? So there's obviously fear in my life, like fear of like not wanting to live like a life that I don't want. And you also have a fear. Your fear might be just pointed in the wrong direction. The fear of like failure. It's like, no, what is failure? Like you have to adjust the fear, right? Because fear is going to exist. I remember, so there was one time, and this is a little quick story about fear a little bit, right? And yes, of course, you're always going to have the fear. But what you're going to do is you want to be capable. You want to learn capabilities along the way. So my dad, when I was knocking on doors, I was selling, and it was just like, I thought I was going to just get better at it immediately, right? So I'm knocking on doors and I'm like, man, it's scary. Like, it was scary to just knock on random people's doors and not know if they were going to accept me or just shoo me away, right? So like, I thought like I would get used to like the fear of knocking on doors, and the fear kind of always still exists. But I was like, Dad, I was like, are you just like fearless when you go to these doors now? Like, how did you get over this? And he's like, you're not going to lose the fear, but what you're going to gain is the courage. He goes, you want to just gain courage, because when you gain courage, the fear doesn't seem as scary, right? The fear still exists, but the fear is able to be managed because you're courageous. So you ask yourself, like, well, who do you want to be? Do you want to be somebody that's courageous and capable, right? Or do you want to be somebody that's scared and timid, right? So I was like, well, shit, I'm timid right now. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be somebody that's timid, and I don't want to be somebody that's, afraid. But like, if the fear's still going to exist, well, then I better get some damn courage, and I better get some damn capabilities and skills. So it was a really good lesson. I was just like, oh shit, I just need to reframe it, right? And I'm afraid of being a timid little bitch, right? So how do I do that? Well, you got to face it and become courageous, right?
So as far as your journey, like, just because I know you, but I want to maybe clarify. So you had the fear of not being in control of your life.
Yeah.
And that was like the main driving force to pushing you down the avenue. Obviously, there were some things along the way that helped accelerate down the entrepreneurship path. Was there also like a pull
of pleasure
that you had? Like, and if so, what was that like pull?
Yeah, the little bits of pleasure, like the pulls of pleasure, I 100% know that like 90% of my motivation did come from like the push of pain. But like the push, I guess the pull of pleasure, it was like, I know some people like, they had this like dream of like who they could be as a man and things like that. There was that in my, vision. Like I did want to have certain things. Like I wanted to have nice things. I wanted to have nice watches. I wanted to have nice cars. And it definitely pulled it for sure. It was definitely pulling me in that direction. And I wanted to have like, at the end of the day, like we do all this stuff because we want to be admired, right? So I wanted to be a person that, attractive women were attracted to. They respected, they appreciated, I never really had like super difficulties with women to bring them into my life, but I've struggled, I guess, at points of being able to set a proper frame where they respected me beyond just like superficial things. So like that's what I'm learning now is like, oh, you might be able to attract women into your life, but like to have them respect and appreciate you and be part of like a bigger mission is a different game, right? So that's, I guess, at the beginning of something is like the superficial pleasures that were pulling me, but now it's like a different type of a pleasure. It's like, oh, I know what I like. I've gotten enough, confidence in like the superficial admiration that I can, get. It's important because if you never get that type of admiration and respect, like from just a physical standpoint of like, oh, I respect, you're an attractive person, right? If you never get that, then you might always be seeking that. But like, I know that like exists. It's okay. And that'll fade. It's, whatever. But like now, what's the deeper pleasure? The deeper pleasure is like somebody that actually truly admires you, respects you, appreciates you, and wants to build with you and grow with you. So yeah, that's actually the bigger pleasure pull now. At the beginning, it was probably more superficial. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I don't feel that, and like I know we talked about this before, but like I didn't have like a turbulent like childhood.
Yeah.
Like
But we talk about like, but most of like my friends and like successful people like usually do.
A lot of successful people have like a really turbulent like experience for a number of years that like then they're like, I don't want to do that again. But like my parents are still together. Like they're good. Like I had a really good childhood. So like I wasn't ever really running from like a particular experience.
Yeah, you were a lot more like pleasure. Like,
yeah, dude.
Like you want the Lambos, you want the cars and stuff like that.
I have like these grand visions of like me and my friends like doing like these grand things, and that's like obviously I was afraid to turn out like that lady at TJ Maxx, but like I also saw like these like desirable things, and I'm like, why can I not have those? Like I was like, my parents don't have these things. A lot of my like friends in high school, like their families were very well off, but they still like they didn't have these things. So I'm like,
but you know what's curious? I'm curious about this actually, because I think the childhood does mold a lot of like your motivations. So because like, if you know my story, if you've listened to anything I talk about, like my family was a little chaotic. My dad was an alcoholic. I was the youngest child, and I just kind of always felt like an oddball. Like even in my friend groups, like I never was like the one that was like just super excited to do things. I was always just like, I'm part of the gang, and like I always had this like fear of like being exiled from the group, versus like maybe I think your childhood was like, I'm part of the group, and like I need to make it more fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like mine was always, I don't know why. It was like, I don't know if this is biology or what, but it was always just like, I don't want to lose the group. Yeah. Versus like, I need to enhance the group. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Mine was always like, I don't want to lose the group. Right. So yeah, that might have been because of the childhood or something like that. So like, I think that shapes a lot of your motivations. So now, that you overcome that fear of that thing. I think it's still always in me though. Like I don't want to be alone. I think right, but like, what's the motivator now? Is it the pleasure? But for me, I think it's always going to be like the main driver is always going to be fear. But if you're aware of that, it doesn't matter. It's just a feeling. You can just use it to get you what you want. Yeah. So
100%.
But do you think that that's like because you like was my assessment right?
Yeah, I would say. Like, yeah, I was. Yeah, I always wanted to like, okay, what's the next like cool thing we could do? And that was always like a big like pull was like, I know we talked about the video game. I was playing this video game. It was like driving these like exotic cars, and I'm like, but I don't see these in my reality. Like I see them when I'm playing, but I go out in the world and I don't see them. And I was like, but I know they exist. And it was just like that thought of like, why not me? It's like, what do these people have that I don't have? Okay, they know something that I don't know. They have done something that not a lot of people do, evidently, because I don't see these. And I grew up in a pretty wealthy township. But I'm like, why? It was always just like the thought of like, why not me? These people are not better than me. They didn't do something that I can't do. And so like, it was just essentially that like thought. And it was just like, I knew I can't work a 9-to-5 job. Like I wouldn't truly be able to do that. Just the type of person I am. And I would feel bad doing it because I know I wouldn't be giving the person what they're looking for, my 100% effort, because I would just be thinking about how there's this other life that I could be living. And so like that's the biggest like, I think I'm definitely more like pulled by things. By the pleasure of things. And obviously I know like in the comments people are like, well, things come and go. I'll find out.
Exactly, that's fine. Like I don't know. I used to be, more like judgmental about my beliefs, because obviously like we've talked about this before too. Like if you have a belief about something and you don't like it hasn't actually like came into reality yet, and everybody else's beliefs are like different than that, you have to like fight it, right? Like this is like the conversation that you have with your family and friends and stuff like that when you're trying something new. You're like, I always had like this, like anger that like whatever I am doing was the right thing to do. But then you know, as you get older, you're like, oh, no, people have different values. People are motivated by different things. You know, just because I'm living a certain way and it required me to get there by doing these things doesn't mean like because you're motivated by this thing, you're doing it wrong. It's just, I want people to feel confident and comfortable with whatever they're doing and be able to live authentically through their actions, and not like, because at the end of the day, like, what do we want? We just want like confident, capable people to do cool shit with, right? So like, if you get there by, you know, being pulled by cool things, and I get there by being afraid of being a loser, you know what I mean? Whatever it may be, it at the end of the day, like, it's still getting us to the actions, you know, and that type of person who is, you know, has the same values, the same, you know, morals and things like that, that we can work together in direction to.
Yes.
That's why I think, you know, all of this stuff is like, what we're doing is like, we're just trying to go on a cool adventure with capable people that are able to acquire skills and knowledge and resources along the way, so we can make things even better. Like, that's literally the human experience. You know, we were talking about the Jason Momoa, you know, documentary he did about just building a Harley because he likes Harleys, you know, and because he became capable and resourceful in another area, he met with other people that became resourceful and competent in other areas, so they could go on this adventure to create something. Like, we're just trying to create and build along the way. So like, you ask yourself, if you reverse engineer that, what's required to go on cool adventures? Resources, capabilities, skills, values, morals, brothers, right? Okay, so what do you need to do those? Like, what do you have to do along the way? That's all you really have to think about. Right?
So it's an interesting dynamic life is in general.
Yeah.
Like, and there's, obviously I went to college for 4 years, and like, we talk about on a daily basis things that are never once spoken about, but the conversations we have, like, every time I'm like, I'll walk away and I'll just be like thinking about something. I'm like, I never thought this hard in college. Like, nothing ever in college really made me like sit there and be like, that was a really good point. And that actually like shaped my life.
And that's tough too, 'cause, I mean, that sucks, you know, because you think like higher education, what is education? Education is to be able to mold yourself into a person that's capable of thinking, reasoning, and understanding how the world works a little bit. And I think, unfortunately, the system now is just like molding people into an ideology of what other people believe and how you should act and how you should think and how you should react, versus like, you know, how you should, you know, look at your own life, analyze it, and then adjust and not judge other people because of that. So yeah, it's just a bad system. So like, why you're talking to me, why you're talking to, you know, Adam Williams, Adam Nasir, you know, Dave Fox, like all these entrepreneurs that have gone down that path and learned a little bit about themselves through entrepreneurship, which is a completely different path of, you know, the normal way of living. They're just trying to go out and say, hey, whatever we're being taught, like the system that's in place now is different than what, if you actually want to live a life where you're fulfilled and, you know, because at the end of the day, we want to feel significant, we want to feel secure, confident, like appreciated, you know, those type of things. And the old system of the way it works now is like, that's not getting people there, and they're very unhappy. And if you want to live a life where you're like chemically enthused and the chemical balance is making you feel better, right, and the people around you, then like, we want to share that. So that's why we're saying, hey, I'm just giving this information away for free because it made me feel a lot better about myself.
Right.
Because I didn't like myself, you know? And the reason why I didn't like myself is because the path that was laid out for me didn't make me feel good. And even if I would have went down that path, exactly what somebody else told me to do, I would have never felt happy, and I don't want people to go down that path, because that's where all of this anger comes from people. Like, nobody will go out into the world and say, I'm living exactly how I want and I gotta go kill everybody. No, that's the exact opposite, right? If you're actually confident in the life that you're living, like, you're happy because you've went out, you've tested things, you've become valuable to your community, your society, whoever it may be, whether it's, a small group of people that appreciate and respect you because you keep your word, because you do the things you say you were going to do, because you've been able to understand how money works and manage the resources and provide value to somebody else, and not really care too much about, like, the external things, but, like, they're nice to have and you've tested them, blah, 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 blah. But, like, because you feel good about yourself, like, the world would be a much better place. And that's, I think, like, what we're trying to do. Like, we just want the world to be a better place, I don't want to make anybody, like, feel like they're less than. Some people are motivated by that, and, like, and if that motivates you, that's fine. And some people will definitely tell you you're a piece of shit to your face, and, if that helps you, move you, that's fine, So that never really was my, like, I don't like that. I don't like feeling like that. It doesn't motivate me because I already talk a bunch of shit in my own head to myself, so I don't need somebody else telling me to do it, But some people, that helps them, I just want to show people that they can live cool lives by doing stuff that, other people will tell them they're dumb for doing. But I think you're not. I think you're very brave and courageous if you go out and do something on your own,
Yeah, I just recently heard a quote. It's probably a pretty common one. I was just, like, scrolling, and it was like, a millionaire will never make fun of you for starting a business. An NBA player will never make fun of you for hooping. It's always the people who aren't actually doing anything who have the most to say about you starting.
Of course.
And I was like, that, like, resonates, because, like, anybody who said anything about me starting whatever, like, I'm doing, like, they're not actually somebody who's competing with me, because they're not doing the same thing. So, and there's a lot, like, people talk a lot of shit on social media, but
yeah, and that's why it's like, it's, and it's very wise for you to know that and be aware of that, at the age you're at, but, like, it's funny because the as we even talked about with, like, fear, right? We're more aware of being able to avoid, like, being killed or exiled from the group, because, like, that's what we adapted and that's how we survived, right? But, like, most people are not going to just, like, write nice comments, like, they will, of course, hopefully, right? But at scale, 1% of people, if they're angry about something, it's a much stronger motivation to write something negative, right? Than the stronger pull to just, like, oh, I got value out of this, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna write a comment, right? Even if you just got, like, you liked it, right? You're not so motivated and juiced up to, like, write a negative comment if you disagree with something, right? So, but then we attach those negative comments to, like, that's how everybody thinks. No, but it's, like, it's such a small percentage of people, and it's usually 99.9% of people that are unhappy with themselves, right? Like, if you were truly happy with yourself and, like, confident and this goes back to, like, going into the weeds of, if you have a belief about something that you haven't actually genuinely tested and put it to the fire, to the flames, and actually experienced it yourself, and somebody questions you on that belief, you're going to fight for it. But, like, that's how I was, because my beliefs didn't have the results yet, right? But then once you get the results and you've experienced it and you've put the time in and you've actually, figured out for yourself what you're capable of, and somebody questions you, then you're good. Like nobody has to, like, I don't have to fight for it. Like, great. Like, that's what you believe. That's cool. Like, what do I have to fight you on my belief? Like, I've lived it. I know what it, I'm good, obviously, like if somebody's going to attack me or my family or my, things like that, like that's a completely different story. But I'm saying if somebody just has like a negative belief, like I'm curious of why you have that, right? Like if your results are different than what mine are, that's fine. You get to keep your belief. That's fine.
Right.
And you get to keep the life you have. That's fine too.
Completely agree.
You think we get it?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we could ramble on. We had these talks every day, just basically bullshitting at dinner or something like that, at the kitchen table. So we figured we'd bring you guys along for it. So we'll keep doing these. And if there's specific things that you guys have questions about, if you stayed this long, thank you. Make sure you subscribe, obviously. Make sure you like, comment, share it, and let us know if there's something that you're interested in. And if you want to hop on the podcast with us, we're always looking to bring people on. And
if you've made it this far in the podcast, come on.
Come on, baby. Come on. Yeah.